Greetings, friends. David Marks here. I'm going to teach you how to fix vignetting, barrel distortion, and chromatic aberration using the lens correction panel inside of Adobe Photoshop Lightroom Classic. Removing these common flaws is remarkably easy, so let's jump right into my Lightroom catalog and let's get started. Night photography, especially chasing the aurora borealis, is one of my passions. I try to use the best camera gear that I can afford whenever I go out at night, and usually that means working with super fast wide-angle lenses. In this case, I shot this image using a Canon 16-35L lens. In the DSLR world, the L series lenses are the very best lenses that Canon offers. Even though I was using an expensive lens, the wide angle here is creating two obvious flaws. First, look at all four corners of this frame. Do you see how each corner falls into heavy dark shadow? That shadowing around the edges is a flaw called vignetting. It's probably not as obvious, but can you see how all of those trees and the horizon line are bending in towards the middle? This bending of lines is also an optical flaw, one that we call pincushion distortion. Fortunately, there's an easy way to fix all of these problems inside of Lightroom Classic. To remove the vignetting and the distortion here, all that I need to do is to tap on this Enable Profile Corrections button. Let me turn this one off and on so you can see what an amazing improvement this simple button makes. Once you enable this switch, two additional sliders become visible down at the bottom of this panel. These two, the distortion and vignetting controls, are useful when you want to use something stronger or weaker than Lightroom's automatic correction. In this image, for example, I think that the factory default level of vignette removal is too strong. With vignettes, it's not always an all or nothing choice, which is why I love the ability to slide this control down until my corners still look dark, but natural. It will not help this image, but there are times when you might want to use the distortion control to add or reduce the strength of that type of correction also. I could see bringing the distortion control down if you had shot some images with a fisheye super wide angle lens and you wanted to keep the weird bowing that the fisheye adds to your scene. I think that these lens profile repairs are amazing, but before you start to believe that these tools can automatically fix everything, let me explain what's happening beneath the surface here. The truth is that Lightroom does not analyze each and every image, looking for vignetted corner or barrel distortion. What's happening here is not magic. When I activate the Enable Profile Correction switch, Classic looks for the make and model of my camera and lens. It looks for this in the metadata that my camera is supposed to include inside of every digital image. Once Lightroom finds this data, it then applies a lens profile. If I click here where it says model, then a long list of profiles will appear. This list includes all of the Canon lenses that the engineers at Adobe have tested for vignetting and distortion. If this image was from a Nikon or some other brand of camera, then a different long list of possible lens corrections would appear. But what if your original is a scanned image? Or what if you're shooting with a third-party lens and your digital camera can't figure out the make and model? That's exactly what has happened here. When I turn on the Enable Profile Correction button, nothing happens. The reason that Lightroom cannot correct this one is because I shot this photo using an old manual lens. With that old lens, there are no electronics, so my camera has no idea what make or model it should record in the image's metadata. If you encounter this problem, don't panic. Fortunately, the brilliant minds at Adobe have given us an alternative method. If I tap on the Manual tab here, then a new set of sliders will appear. Using these controls, I can manually remove as much of the distortion or vignetting as I want from any lens or camera combo. If I need to add this much distortion removal, then the edges of my image get warped and bowed, and they are no longer rectangular. That white space along the sides is Lightroom's way of showing that with this level of correction, my image no longer fills its original rectangle. To fix this problem, I need to crop away the white space. This is easily done by turning on the Constrain Crop switch. The vignetting in this image is not very noticeable, but just to demo, I can adjust my midpoint and amount sliders too. If I tap on this little light switch right here along the top left of this panel, then I can temporarily turn these changes on and off so that you can see what we've done. That was easy, and 99% of the time, my camera automatically records all of the metadata that it needs, and I don't even have to open up this manual tab. Let me show you one more example where we have a different kind of optical problem. Here, I have an image that I captured one evening as the sun was setting over this old dock. Turning on the Enable Profile Correction will do us no harm here, but we're not going to see the same kind of dramatic results that we saw in the last example. If I zoom way in here though, can you see some really weird neon-colored green and red stripes running up and down along the sides of these pylons? Can you see these strange colored stripes down here in the water too? These stripes, along what should be a nice clean edge, are an optical flaw that we call chromatic aberration. Fixing this in Lightroom couldn't be easier, but before we make them go away, let me zoom out for a second. If this flaw is new to you, then let me explain that this type of chromatic aberration is caused by the failure of my lens to focus all of the different colors in the rainbow down to the same spot on my sensor. This type of problem, what's technically called lateral chromatic aberration, often appears as red-green or blue-yellow stripes around the edges of objects near the sides of the photo. I want to stress that last part because if I zoom in right here in the center of my photo only, then I might never notice this problem. When you're looking for this flaw, you need to look near the sides of your photo, and you need to look at a place where there ought to be a nice clean edge. Now that you know where to look for the aberration, let me show you that with one click, this flaw is gone. That's it. Let me turn this one on and off a few times so that you can see it. There's the aberration. And with that switch on, now it's gone. That's all that I have to teach you in this tutorial. But before I sign off, let me add one more comment. I suspect that you are going to enable these remove chromatic aberration and lens profile correction switches again and again as you work on your images with Lightroom. I suspect that you are going to use these improvements on almost every photo. I know that I do. If you eventually get tired of opening up this panel and turning these two on, then there are ways to automate this process inside of Lightroom Classic. I'll leave teaching you how to do that for another video, but I just want you to know that there is an opportunity here to automate these steps when you're ready. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you learned something today, then please hit the subscribe button and leave us a like or a comment down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in our next tutorial.